Welcome to Breakthrough with Joanna the Pena. Today is so exciting. We have a special guest for you, and his name is Today we'll be interviewing Julio Meran. He's a founder and CEO of the Dream Center. But I won't say too much because I don't want to spill the beans. All you gotta know is that he's killing the game. Let's go. All right, so here we have Julio Meran, and we're gonna dive deep on today's podcast. And Julio, how are you?
I'm well, Joanna. Thank you. It's an honor and a blessing to be here in your podcast Breakthrough, and I definitely appreciate that.
And I wanted to start off, right? So this is a very special podcast, not just because it's my first podcast, really because you're here, and I'm really honored to have you as my first guest because I truly feel that you exemplify what my podcast truly even means. Right? Breakthrough with Joanna the Pena is to help our audience break through whatever barriers they have gone through their life. And I'm really pumped that you're my first one because this is a perfect way of just, starting the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. So let's get right to it. Can you tell the audience, who are you, where you come from, a little bit about your background, your organization, and tell us something that you feel the world should know off the bat. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Again, my name is Julio, and I was born and raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I am half Puerto Rican, half Dominican.
Okay.
Yeah, representing both sides of the world. My mom's side is Puerto Rican, my father's side is Dominican. I was born and raised in Lawrence. I've been here just about all my life. There's spots in my history, in my life that I've moved, to try to run away from my problems, but I always end up right back in my roots back here. I am currently the founder and executive director of the Merrimack Valley Dream Center. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is stationed in Lawrence, Massachusetts at the moment. Our motto is what we could say is find the need and fill it, find the hurt and heal it. And mostly we have different programs under it. And, basically it's all about people. It's all about loving people, building those relationships with people, providing needs, tangible, intangible ways, and be able to, just speak potential into their life, and blessings and, any spiritual love and prayer that people may need. The Dream Center we're part of the Dream Center Network, which is the main one is in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And there's about 85 Dream Centers that we're part of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you just started one up.
We started one up.
In Lawrence, Massachusetts.
In Lawrence, that's right.
Okay.
Lawtown.
All right.
It's exciting. We get to partner with them and just be, provide good stuff in the community, for people.
And how long have you been doing that?
We've been doing it. It started off as just a regular ministry, about 7 years. We've been doing it about 7 years. In December, actually, will be 7 years. And
congrats.
Thank you. It's a lot of work, but it's well worth it.
Oh, yeah.
And about 3 years or 3.5 years, we found that there's just a lot more needs, and the vision that was given to us, but what I say, God, we decided to expand and become incorporated in 501c3.
What a blessing. What a blessing.
It is.
And one last thing. What is one thing that you would like to share with the world before we start our show? Is there anything that you feel off the bat that you want to share that either changed your life or something that you might go by? Is there anything that you want to share?
There's a saying from Mother Teresa. There's many things that I love, many quotes that I love and that I go by. But one of my favorites of Mother Teresa is that it's not how much you do, but how much love you put into what you do that counts. And I love that because, it's very easy to just, be a blessing and provide food, but behind it, everybody is able to encounter and feel the love and appreciation and the care and compassion that you have towards them when they're receiving those tangible, all those items.
And that's super important because, what is our impact on this world, right? What are we doing every day? You know, you run a nonprofit, I run a nonprofit, and the real goal, and I think is the biggest solution that can change the world, is giving love, and giving love genuinely, right?
Yep. It's all about love. It's all about love.
It really is. It really is. So I want to ask you the first question. I think this question is what everyone is here for, right? This is what everybody wants to hear. They're tuning into Julio. They want to hear his story. Can you briefly tell us, what did you break through from?
I broke through what's called heroin addiction, which is also known as the disease of addiction or substance use disorder. I also broke through depression, suicidal, homicidal, low self-esteem, many things, homelessness, just being reduced to animalistic level, and just not having hope at all, and just giving up on myself.
And thank you for sharing that, because I feel that the reason why I'm so, blown away by your story is because you have conquered so many emotions, so many situations. And I feel that, everyone here that's tuning in can connect to you, right? Whether they're going through it and they're currently, dealing with addiction, whether they're homeless, whether they have a family member or a loved one that is going through depression, or any of the things that you're mentioning, everyone can connect. And I really hope, guys, that when we listen to Julio's story, that we're able to take from it and apply it, right? Apply what you hear, because we can take that and truly make the difference. See, real quick before we continue here, I have family members, right? Or I have one in particular that, is struggling with homelessness and addiction. And honestly, it's easy for family members to give up. It really is. Like, they're living their life, you're living yours, and it's really easy to just say, yo, you know what? He's lost, she's lost, right? But I want everyone to really listen to Julio's story, because at the end of the day, if we don't give up, that's when the breakthrough happens. So, I'm just so, excited that you're here, because I feel that everyone can take something from it. But more than anything, they can take your story and turn back to their family member, their friend, their loved one, and say, listen, I'm not done. I'm not done with you. I'm not going to give up, because you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here as a founder and CEO of a nonprofit. Like, that's just amazing. It's a blessing. So I'm so pumped. So thank you for sharing that. What I really want you to do now is bring us way back to when you felt that the emotion started to be triggered, right? Like, bring us right back, because, all right, you ended up, dealing with addiction. You ended up homeless. But can you bring me back to, when did this all start?
Well, thank you. And one of the things that you just said that just stuck out to my mind is that, having to the crowd is, just to be able to understand and try to connect, but also, like you said, apply, because I think that only through understanding and application that it works. In application, it's action, and that's very important. I believe that the disease of addiction, and I call it disease of addiction, started way before I even picked up a substance, an actual drug. And the reason I say that is because at a very young age, I grew up. I grew up in a good family. It wasn't an abusive family. Most of my family were in religion. They went to church and all that. So there wasn't no sexual abuse or anything like that. But for some reason, when I look back into my life at a very young age, and some of it's still kind of fuzzy, and I think those are things that I've maybe buried deep down. And then slowly, as I work through my life and through my recovery process, they come out. And as I'm working on it, I found myself at a very young age, going through so many type of emotions, tons of emotions, at about 8-9 years old.
9 years old.
About 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
I remember that's when my parents actually got divorced, and for some reason I took ownership of that. Now I understand that it had nothing to do with me, but at that time I didn't understand, and I didn't understand what was really going on, and there was many emotions that was happening in my life at that age that had me very confused. I really had nobody there to properly guide me of what those emotions were and why. I can remember very much, and I still feel it to this day. Feelings of hopelessness. Just the desire to be loved, cared for, validated, appreciated. I remember at 9.5 years old, and it's just not even being comfortable in my own skin at all. I couldn't even stand. I remember, when I used to, my grandparents or my mom used to send me to take a shower, I wouldn't even look in the mirror because I wasn't comfortable. I couldn't stand who I was. And at 9 years old, at that age, it affects you very much because you don't know what's going on.
Right.
And not really somebody to share it with and guide me of what's going on. And I think the disease of addiction or whatever it was played a big role on the way I felt, a feeling of those worthlessness, less than, never amount to anything, and just not feeling loved, cared for, or anything like that.
And that's so sad that you had to go through these emotions at 9 years old. Like, I have a nephew who's 8, and I can't even imagine him feeling not loved, not appreciated, not worthy. It's just so sad. So you walked us through the trigger, and it sounds like that it's a divorce. You were confused, they were divorced. I know in our previous conversation you mentioned that you viewed your dad as a superhero.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my dad was a person that I looked up to. Until today, I look up to him. We have a great relationship now, because life has changed, and my dad, I've always looked up to my dad at a very young. You have that male role model, especially at 9 years old.
It's important for a young boy.
It is to have that Superman, and he was my Superman, and unfortunately, with the divorce, he wasn't around much. The divorce, from what I understand and little bits that I remember, it was very ugly. So there was times that I would go probably months without my dad, and not having that superhero, that person that I felt comfortable with, that person I looked up to, and just not able to conversate with him. It caused a deep sense of a hole inside me, and abandonment. And abandonment issues.
Wow, that is definitely tough at, again, 9 years old. You did mention to me that when he left, right, he was not there anymore. And so when a young boy, and this message goes to all the young boys, or even all, young children in general, when you don't have that superhero, that super dad, that super mom, right, you tend to shift, right? You tend to shift to, well, what are you grabbing to? Who are you going to be seeking? So can you share with us, Dad's not around, what's next? Who did you turn to? Who became the superhero in the moment, I guess, right? Because everyone, strives to find that comfort. So who became that?
Yeah, and you're right. Every boy needs that. Even daughters and all that. They need a father. They need both parents in their life, whether the parents are together or not. But they need to be appreciated and feel loved. Because at a young age, you crave that love, from both parents, and, just having my father not in my life, and that hole that I had in my spirit and my soul caused me to, I honestly, I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know how to react and how to deal with all those emotions that was going inside me. You've had worthlessness, low self-esteem, not feeling loved, all that stuff, all bottled up inside me, and not knowing how to just get it out. And what happens when you overfill something, it explodes, and like they say, negative attention is better than no attention. So when you're not getting that attention, and you desire that craving of want to be accepted, be acknowledged and loved, you're going to do what you're going to do to get attention. And for myself, I started being a rebel. I started acting out, in order to somehow, fill temporarily that void of the emptiness that I had, because now my father was not in my life, my superhero that I looked up to. It was all of a sudden just gone, whoosh, gone, and I had no clue what was going on. And what happens is, at a very young age, and when I guided properly, then we start looking for outside resources or other people that's so close to us that gives us the attention. And as soon as one person gives you the attention, whether that person is negative, positive, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You're gonna gravitate to that, and that's why people tend to, get involved with gangs, and certain other lifestyles, and whoever pays attention to them will do that. And what ended up happening is I started looking for that male role model, a superhero.
Who is it? Who was it?
It was actually my uncle.
Your uncle.
My uncle on my mom's side. My uncle. He was a few years older than me.
Okay.
And he became my role model, my superhero, because he was the closest one to me and gave me the attention that I've always sought in all my life.
So one thing I want to mention, when you say a few years older than me, you say the word uncle. For me, when I think of uncle, I think of that Theo, that uncle who's like 45 years old, right? Like that older individual. Yeah. But here is a little different. And see, in the Latino community, I have a niece that's older than me. So technically I was an aunt before I was born, right?
Okay. Oh.
So, in your case, how old was your uncle and how old were you? So the audience can understand, who is this influence?
Yeah. So and you're right. In the Spanish, the Spanish culture, Latino culture is very different. Sometimes some people have an uncle that's 4 years old and you're 30.
Exactly.
That's how it is. That's how we Latinos run. Very different. But my uncle, he wasn't like an old type of guy. He was probably about 3 or 4 years older than me.
So how old was he when you identified him as being your superhero? And how old were you?
I would say probably about going to 12, 13, or 14 years old. Okay. In that phase of my life. Previously, before that, I was staying with my mom once my parents divorced. But I was just acting out way too much. And my mom was a single mom, handling both kids by herself and working 2 jobs, that it was difficult for her to, pay attention or give me the attention that I needed or the correction that I needed.
Right.
And it was affecting my sister to the point that, and I just didn't want to be home anymore. It's like that negative attention better than no attention. I was already sought negativity because it drawed me in to the emptiness, and I ended up going to my grandmother's, where me and my uncle, and this is how it happened, me and my uncle share the same room.
Okay.
So that's why I say that he was my next closest one, next to my right-hand man.
Okay, so you identify him as being your superhero. You're looking up to him because he's older than you. What was he up to, and what ended up happening?
He was already, since he was 3-4 years older than me, he was already involved with the street life. He was already involved with the selling of drugs. And I would see, with the money, I would see the guys back in the days, like Run DMC, and all those guys, the fat boys in the corner, drinking the 40s
with the chains,
and all
the
that.
money.
Exactly, the bling blings, the money and all that drawed.
As a 13-year-old, you see that, you're like, I want that.
Yeah, I want that.
I want that.
Yeah, and I seen all the attention, the fame, and I seen all the excitement, and I was like, I want to be a part of that. And my uncle was a part of that. So that was a way for me to get there and be able to, to help out and temporarily fill that void, that love, that acceptance that I've always wanted and I've craved for so long, and he was it. He was the opening door to it.
And what's interesting is that as you identified him as your superhero, when you hear superhero, you think about positive influence. But this wasn't the case.
This was not.
So what ended up happening to school? You're 13, 14 years old. You have this influence. You see all this money and fame. Like, boom, what happened?
I never felt like, like I mentioned earlier, at a very young age, I've never felt, a part of anything, at all. And I never clicked with people in school. And I was like very nerdy, maybe like Urkel, something like that. I never was able to, open up to people and build friends, But my uncle we had a strong connection because we lived in the same roof, and in the same room that we shared, and I would go school temporarily and just act out, and I'll go in-house suspension, or I'll just skip and I'll go right to the corner. Back in the day was parking Bennington Street or parking Hampshire Street. Lawrence was very different at that time in the late 80s, early 90s, and that's what I will go, and seeking that validation, that acceptance, hang out with him, hang out with the boys, they were all older than me, they felt like a part of a family, and I felt accepted, and just to be able to just go to school. And I said, you know what, this is not for me. I don't want that, and just thinking about what they're doing in the corner, the fun they're doing, and all the stuff that they're doing. I said, you know what, school's not for me. I'm out of here, and
at eighth grade.
Yeah, eighth grade, yeah. And I just say it's not for me. I'm done, and my mind, my heart, everything was already dead set on the streets, the corner, my uncle, my superhero, and everybody else in that lifestyle, and I just ended up stopped going to school because of that.
You dropped out of school at eighth grade. That's crazy to even, think about, right? Talk to us about what happened when you dropped out. So you have you have your uncle, you drop out and you're on the streets. Boom, what happened?
Again, I lived with my grandparents. My grandparents didn't speak very, very little English. My grandfather speaks well English, my grandmother not as much. But basically my grandparents, I was able to do what I want. They were busy working at that time, doing their own thing, so it just be me and my uncle just staying home. And since I quit school, I was, and hanging out with the boys and, back in the days in the blocks and all that, wanted to be a part of that, desired to be a part of that, and every single one of them was like all older than me. There was me and maybe another one that was about my age there, but everybody else was a lot older, and about 3 or 4 year time span. Same thing to my uncle, and we got involved with, my uncle was already involved with, manufacturing, distribution of heroin,
Manufacturing and distribution of heroin.
Basically, we just, get the supplies, which you call bales, fingers, and you break them up, and then basically just break it up and package it and everything for distribution, and we'll sell it. And since I wasn't in school no more, I wanted to be a part of that. And again, I had that negativity mindset, like those guys in Run DMC, Easy, all that. And I wanted to make money. No more school,
what's next, right?
It's on, and again, everything that the crew did or the boys did, I will go above and beyond, because again, I craved the validation, the acceptance. If they did something, I go above and beyond means, so I could get that pat on the back and feel that rush of accepted and validated, So it was just like a drug, honestly,
The drug before the drug.
The drug before the drug, the emotional drug, correct. And I got involved with that. The same thing with the packaging, the manufacturing, the distribution. We started selling it at a I started selling at a very young age, about 14 years old,
Wow. I can't even imagine a 14-year-old, packaging and selling drugs and just being in the business at such a young age. But and what's funny is that, to us, the outsider looking in, we're like, oh my God, drug deals and selling and the distribution. However, that made you happy.
It did.
As negative as it is, in the outside world, you were getting validation, you were getting love, you were getting that pat in the back. You had brotherhood, you had superheroes, because I'm sure there was more than one person in there. Yeah. You had that thing that you were cribbing, and that's why you were involved with that. Not because you're a bad kid. You weren't a bad kid, but you had a void, and this filled it. So it's really important for us to understand that especially when we work with youth, is to understand that if they're, having issues in schools, or if they're acting out, there is a root cause. 100%. Yeah. That's just mind blowing. Let's fast forward to business is good. I know that you mentioned before that business got really good, but something happened at your grandmother's house that just really just flipped everything upside down. And this is the next, huddle that you had to get over, really.
Yeah. Things were really, really good. It felt like I was on top of the world, and like you said, was filling that void. It felt like a drug, that emotional drug, and feeling of the acceptance, validation, all that, temporarily, and the more I do, the more fill it up, but it was never fixed. It was like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, and it doesn't work. I grew up as a good kid, but I needed to fill that void, and I remember that, with the distribution, selling, I remember these individuals are customers, right? And they used to be coming to us, and I used to disrespect them, talk down to them. I used to look down to them, and I used to say, I will never be like one of those junkies. I remember saying that, totally disrespected them, you know.
And you weren't using the drug.
I was not using the drug at that
You
time.
weren't using the drug, and you're like, I will never be like
Yeah, I will never be like that. You know, I would disrespect them, and they came $1 too short, and there'll be a problem, you know, because I got greedy and the money, you know, and it was all about the money, you know, and re-upping more and all that, and trying to put a mask on, an image that I was a tough guy, when in reality, deep down, I was just a hurting individual. Hurting boy. Yeah, hurting little inner child or whatever they call it, boy. You know, and as time went on, you know, with this packaging, the heroin, the manteca in Spanish, is I wasn't wearing a mask or gloves or protecting myself.
So you have to wear a mask and gloves.
It is suggested if you don't want to get hooked.
True.
You know, if you don't want to get hooked, simply because of the fumes.
Okay.
And when you're packaging it, then it goes into your fingers, your skin, and all that.
Oh, wow.
And then it goes into your body. And one day, out of nowhere, it took a while. But one day out of nowhere, I remember waking up in the morning, and I felt like really, really bad. I had no clue what was going on. You know, I started having like tremendously anxiety, you know, muscle aches, you know, nausea. I was throwing up a lot, sweaty. I couldn't concentrate, muscle spasm. If you take the flu, times it by probably 20 to 30 times of that.
That was it.
And I had no clue what was going on. And I'm like, I have no clue what's going on. And I told my uncle, you know, because we were getting ready. He woke me up getting ready because we had to package some more. And he says, I think I know what's going on. And I said, what? He was like, here you go. You know, he gave me un pasecito. You know, at first I was a little bit scared.
And pasecito in
English is a hit. You know, a hit. You know, snorted of the heroin. He says, this is gonna make you feel better. And I didn't understand. You know, again, I used to see the junkies and all that. You know, and come sick. But it wasn't comprehending or it wasn't fully acknowledging of that sickness was. And as soon as that hit my system within 2 or 3 minutes, that was a turning point. It was a wrap. I fell in love with the drug. That drug took over my soul, my spirit, everything that you could think of. It took it.
How? Like, how does that drug take everything away? Like, how did it make you feel?
Let me tell you something. That drug has to be from the devil. You know, because the power that has it, you know, you know, and I'm sure people will probably understand by seeing by their family members or you know, just the craziness that people do for the next one. Right. That fix, regardless of whatever it is so powerful that that it controls your ability to make proper decisions. It controls your life, when to wake up, when to go to the bathroom, when to eat. Everything it controls. You have no say. And when I take that first hit, all I remember was like in my mind, you know, it was very euphoric, but it took away everything that I bottled up, everything that all those emotions, those negativity, the you know, the worthlessness, everything that I could think of, all bottled that I tried to mask, cover, fix with outside resources. It took it away. And I remember telling myself, this is what I saw my whole life, you know, and within 2 or 3 minutes, I felt physically fine. You know, I felt normal, you know, and that's how powerful it is. Very normal. And I remember telling my uncle, what's going on? I don't understand it. You know, he was like, I kept telling you, put a mask on and the gloves, you know. So
your body craved it. You started to get sick and you had to take a hit in order to just feel 100%
just
normal.
to feel normal and euphoric. And not only that, just, you know, it just basically gave me everything that I've saw my whole life.
Wow. That's it. That's sad because, you know, again, superhero, right? Yeah. You know, you're looking up to someone, you get caught up into their daily life and it just takes you away from there. There's something that you mentioned to me in the past about this situation, right? So you're packaging, now you're using, you're addicted now.
Yeah.
How often were you using?
Every single day, you know.
How many times a day?
Probably every 2 or 3 hours, you know, 2 or 3 hours, I will use. And since we had so much supplies, you know, I just continuously take a hit, you know, just throughout the day.
So you were using your supply that you were supposed to sell.
But exactly, you know, at that point, I haven't got to hitting the rock bottom yet. So we had enough supplies, you know, that I was able to allow to be able to, you know, continue just feed that, you know, and and usually for the most part is the first one will handle the physical part, but after that it was to block and put away all the emotions behind it.
Wow, Julio, this is something that I feel that someone who has never used it would never understand how powerful it is. And so some people, right, they see someone who is struggling with addiction and then, or they're on the corner trying to like get a couple of dollars to buy the next hit, right? We're so quick to judge. We're so quick to say, now, you know what? They're just a junkie. Or you know what? It's not really a disease. You could just stop.
Yeah.
But you can't. Yeah. And the way that you're explaining is that you fiend for the next one. You fiend for the next hit, right? So I want you to walk us through, right? We're about to hit your rock bottom, the rock bottom of your story. Please walk us through. Once this happened, you are basically losing control, right? You're going through your product, you're using your product. That means you're going to have less profits, right? Walk us through what happened. What flipped everything upside down? Meaning, what ended up spiraling your life downwards? Meaning, what ended up happening at your grandmother's house that you no longer had a place to be? What forced you to become homeless? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, it was what ended up happening. Again, my grandparents were Pentecostal, religious church people, and they got wind of it. Not only wind, but they got tired of the detectives going to the house because the house got what's called hot. It was a hot spot, so you had the detectives constantly show up at the house, wanting to get in, even though they didn't have a warrant. Or if they had a warrant, they'll go and search and all that, and they got tired of it and they said, listen, we're Christian people,
we had no idea.
We can't have that in our home. You guys got to go, so what ended up happening because of that, me and my uncle were tossed out of there, and we ended up becoming homeless simply because of that. Not having that home, that place to go at my grandparents' house.
And tell us, so this is in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Tell us where were you? Where did you spend your time? Where did you end up sleeping now that you're out on the streets?
So we would, a couple times we would stay in people's houses, some abandoned buildings, wherever we could stay and put our head at nighttime. Most of the day we're just busy doing what we were doing, had to do, and the nighttime we'll try to figure out and find a place. A couple times we would stay in an abandoned building and just get high there, hang out, go out, do a couple sales, come back, get high. Our main concern wasn't really a roof over our head or anything like that. It was making the money and getting the next and getting the next one, until it got to a point that we started making a little bit extra money on top of that and was able to get, an apartment there, Unfortunately, like at that time, Lawrence a lot of things started changing. A new chief of police came, and started cracking down hard, so the streets got even more harder, and the puntos at the times, were just being knocked down, by detectives and all that. And we would end up getting raided by the cops, at the house because we had the punto and something out of there.
Right. And so who got locked up? The house got raided. What happened? Where were you? Where was him? What happened?
Yeah. So the last apartment that we had, my uncle stayed at the house, and I went to go do a delivery, to a sale to some people from Maine. And when I ended up coming back, as soon as I was coming back and turning the corner, I seen the detectives come from everywhere. Se tiraron. They raided, and unfortunately, my uncle was in there. And, they ended up arresting him, taking him in, and from there, obviously, we know, the house was destroyed, the doors, everything. The landlord didn't want me there, so I had no place to go. I was definitely homeless.
So you're homeless again. This is the second time you're homeless. Now you're by yourself. Walk us through. Where are you? Where are you sleeping? Like how are you feeling? And how old are you at that time? I
was about 15 and a half. Yeah, 15 and a half. And I was lost because, again, my uncle was my superhero. He's a guy, the go-to guy. Yeah. He's a guy that I trusted, the guy that took care of me, the guy that was my father, the guy that provided for me, even though we were partners in it. He was the one that looked out for me. Right. Because I was his nephew and he was my uncle. So I was lost. Again, it goes right back to my father disappeared. He was gone.
And you're just looking. You're just trying to find that role model to just.
And I found that role model, and now the cops come and take him away. And when he take him away, goes right back to that same feeling that I felt when my father was gone out of my life. The abandonment, anger, shame. I felt, I felt guilty because I said, you know what? And this is crazy thinking. I said, I should have been there with my uncle, because at least we both would have been together, getting busted together. So I felt guilty, and I just felt confused. I felt less than. I felt, insecure. I didn't know all these type of emotions,
As you should. You're 15 years old and you're on the street and you don't have a father figure. Your father and your father figure, right? You're stripped from everything, right?
And not knowing what's going to happen next.
So now you're on the street again. How long did you stay homeless? And then talk to us. Like, what was your day to day? What happened every day now that you're on your own?
Well, my day to day was, I started, I got in contact with a couple of the customers because now I had a habit. At that point I was still snorting and I needed to, obviously supply my habit, but at the same time make money to somehow eat every once in a while and try to make some money to see if I could get a place, and I find myself, just homeless. I would stay in abandoned buildings. I would stay, there was this place that I remember going to that it was a friend's house, but I wasn't allowed to be in the top. He said I could stay in the basement. And I remember staying in that basement, and that basement was like nasty. That's nasty. There was really nothing down there. There wasn't really no door for it. You had to crawl under the porch to get into that basement. To get into the entrance of that basement, and I had a little corner of there. And that's where I found myself, start hitting rock bottom, because I had a little corner, and then in that little corner is where I would sleep, and thank God that, when it rains or the slush in the winter and all that, the water will come to a certain point of it. But that little spot was kind of warm, dry, but dingy. And then in the little corner next to it, I would, that's where I would do, my bathroom necessities and all that.
So hold on. You're sleeping in a basement of your friend's house. It's a really rough area. Pretty much water comes in, so there's puddles everywhere. It's pretty much damp and wet. You're sleeping on a corner of the basement. You don't have running water. You don't have a shower.
No.
You don't have a toilet. And if you have to go to the bathroom, you just take a couple of steps to the other side of the basement and just go to the bathroom at 15 years old.
At 15 and a half.
Wow. So that's crazy that it had to get to that level, and I could just imagine how you felt. Can you share with us not only how you feel, but did you ever think about your future at that point that you're sleeping every day in this dark basement? Like, what did you feel your future looked like at that point?
My future, when I think about it now, when I look back and I think about it, my future, I didn't think I had a future, and I think I got to a point in my life at that time that I seen where I'm at, and I started believing the lie from either the disease of addiction or whatever, that that's going to be, my life. I was reduced to that, and it got to a point that I actually accepted it, and I believe that, once an addict, always an addict, that lie, and I didn't think I had a future. I was so consumed with the next one, getting the next one.
Nothing else was important.
Nothing really much was important as far as thinking of the future. I remember just, at those night times, late at night time, 1, 2 in the morning, being in the corner in the damp, trying to stay warm because it's winter time, and just trying to figure out, this is my life and I deserve it. And I started thinking that I deserve that punishment.
That's so sad. Talk to me about, all right, I mean, you weren't there forever, so how long were you in that basement, in that, how you say, animalistic lifestyle? Because you had no running water, you had no light, you were just living, you were just surviving, right? How long did that last? Because I know that you spent a good amount of time outside.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
I would stay in the basements. I would stay in different places, different abandoned buildings. I would never go into a shelter because of my pride and ego. And when you're in a shelter,
if I can just pause you, right? Sure. That's really important for the viewer, anyone listening to this. That, like, this blew my mind when you first told the story, because the everyday individual says, well, why can't that addict just go to a shelter? Why can't they just go to a detox? Why, right? But hearing from you, an intellectual individual, clearly, you said to yourself that I will never go to a shelter. You had that pride. So could it be that the other people, the individuals that's out there also have that same pride? So we can't be so quick to judge and say, man, they're lazy, they don't want to get better, right? We have to stop and think like they are going through their own emotions and their own struggles. And it's not all about the laziness. It's not about, oh, why can't they just get a job? And honestly, listening to your story made me, change those views, right? But I just want to stop there because the next time you see an addict and the next time you see a homeless person, there is a whole story behind that individual. There is a whole story behind this individual. So thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Now let's get to the nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. It's crazy the journey that you have walked us through. That has led up to you being homeless on the streets, that has led you, rain, snow, I think you mentioned 3 years you were living outside. What turned the page? What turned the page?
Well, living in those 3.5 years, maybe even 4 years of, the capacity to feel human was gone at a holistic level. And many things happened within those 3.5, 4 years. I would say I've tried many detoxes. Right. I've tried many programs. I tried church. I tried so many things. None of that worked. Even incarcerations. I tried, and the incarcerations, I would come out and just right back into the same thing because I thought that the main problem was the drug and was not me. Once we remove the drug, we find out that the main issue is the person that looks in the mirror, which is myself, the internal stuff that's going on, and I found, it got to a point.
So what was your breakthrough?
My breakthrough? I would say my breakthrough, I remember finding myself under the Pemberton Park. Okay. Under the bridge. It's a certain part in the middle of the Pemberton Park, the middle bridge part, the one next to the fence. There's a fence there now. There's a small little spot there. And I remember, just using there. And every time I use, with my fix and all that, and I used to pray to God, just take me out. I can't do this anymore. Nothing's working for me. I just lost all hope and hopelessness. I burned my bridges with my family. My family wanted nothing to do with me anymore. Friends, nothing like that. I burned completely my bridges, and it got to a point that I honestly, I don't know what it is. It definitely had to be prayers for my family, my mom, my grandmother, probably.
They were supporting you from a distance.
Huh?
They were supporting you from a distance.
From a distance, yeah. They gave me that tough love, but at the same time kept me in a distance because they didn't want to go through the pain and see me slowly kill myself, because that's where I was heading towards this path of destruction. I was very suicidal, very homicidal. I was just afraid to act out on the suicides. I had multiple overdoses, but either the ambulance will come or the people that stayed next to that were friends at that time would have Narcan, and get me up out of that overdose, and out of all those years, in addiction, being reduced to animalistic level, just being out there eating out of the garbage, not going with showers, months without showers, and barely even eating, a good 90 pounds soaking wet, there was a thing that I believe and I truly know that God answered the prayer. And I think he gave me the gift of desperation.
Gift of desperation. Yeah. Talk to me about that.
The gift of desperation, it was something that I remember, and there was no burning bush. There was no burning bush at all. There was no light coming from heaven or a voice coming from heaven or anything like that. But it was a small, still voice that said, "It is finished." And when I heard those words, "It is finished," there was a part of me that all the hopelessness that I had, that the point that I believed that once an addict, always an addict, that I was going to die, a junkie, that I truly, deep down in my soul, truly believed was wiped out because it sparked a little bit of hope, a fire in my spirit and in my heart when I heard that it is finished. It wasn't my own voice, but I feel that was God that letting me know that, the time has come that I'm going to take you and give you that breakthrough,
So you heard that voice, and it just, boom, it shifted you into action, and you acted upon it because you were sharing with me the other day that, you called your mom and you're like, hey, like, I want to change. Can I go to, a family member in Vermont? And you talked about how even though it was hard, right? Because you had withdrawals. You were up in Vermont, right? Vermont or Maine?
Vermont.
Vermont. You were up in Vermont, and you had withdrawals. You had thoughts of coming back, but you stay with consistency, and you got involved with church. You cleaned yourself up. You got a job. Like, you had that moment and you wanted change, but no one can force you to have that change, because had your mom, had your friend said, Julio, wake up, man, get your thing together, let's go, get up, let's go, you would say, nah, man, I'm living this life, like I'm good, like don't worry about me, right? But and this is where I feel that this is important, the gift of desperation, because I feel, and you affirmed it, it has to come from within. It has to come from you. As much as I want to give amazing advice to my family member or anyone else, it doesn't matter how motivational I am. It's a process, but they have to want it. They have to want change. They have to want to make a difference, right? And that's what happened to you. And you changed your life. You went through it. You struggled. I'm not sitting here saying it was all butterflies and rainbows.
It was not.
Because clearly we're limited on this podcast. We can go for hours with his story. But the point is that he chose to change. He chose to stop. And no one forced him. He had to go through his process. But, his family kept praying. So we can't give up on other people. We have to continue praying, continue saying words of affirmation, continue wishing well, right? Because eventually it'll click and eventually they'll want change, but change will not happen when it's forced. Julio, I truly admire your story because, and thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable and sharing your whole entire journey, because, I think this really helps give a different perspective to the everyday individual who may see someone in a situation. But I admire it because you took it and ran with it. And again, this is not butterflies and rainbows, but you took it and ran with it and completely turned your life around. You are a founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization as of 7 years ago. You did that. No one did that but you. You chose to change your life. And I want to commend for you to, leave that lifestyle. Although it was hard and yes, you were pretty much sucked in there for good up until you made that change. So I really hope that you are proud of yourself, that you're proud of yourself because, you have two beautiful sons that we didn't mention, and you have this organization that you are changing lives. You are changing people's lives that either are going through it or have gone through it and need support, and you are just paying it forward, and that's so commendable. And I really hope that every day you go to bed, you say, shit, I did it. Because you did it. And I really hope that this message can, inspire families, can inspire someone who's going through it to look within themselves and continue praying, continue supporting, because there is hope. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that Julio, right? Someone in that situation would turn around and not just clean himself and get a job, but become a freaking CEO.
Amen.
You're amazing, Julio.
God is good. Thank you. Thank you.
I do have one last question. How do you feel, you being in that situation? How do you feel? And you can look into the camera, I guess, if you want. Is there any advice that you can give to parents that are going to get a divorce to take a step and to think about their actions? Maybe they should do it a certain way, right? What are things that you would have appreciated? What's some advice for the parents who are getting a divorce? One, and two, what's another advice that you can give family members or friends that know someone in that situation? And how can we best support someone in that situation? What are some delivery methods that would work? Because if I force something on you, you're not going to take it. So what are some methods that people can support people in that situation? And how can parents do it better?
Thank you, Joanna. I'm not sure this situation, everybody's situation is definitely different when it comes to divorce. It could be many reasons why people get divorced, parents, there's various reasons, but I would say, when it comes to divorce, that it's important that both of the parents actually, try to be, even though it could be messy, try to be civilized as much as they can and sit down with the kid and kind of explain the process, not of why they're getting divorced, but the process of letting the kids know that it is not their fault, that they had no part of it. That sometimes unfortunate events and things like that happen. But the most important thing is that once going through the divorce process, pay very much attention to your kids' emotional and mental and spiritual part of it, and just pour, and just give plenty of love and have both parents be a part of, going through that process with the child or the children themselves, because it's not an easy process for both parents. But at the same time, the kids, there's that breakage from the home that the kids are experiencing. So the kids are experiencing so many things, so many emotions going through their lives, and they themselves are hurt and they don't know if they should take the blame or not. So I would probably advise, counseling, just sit down with the kids and just let them know that they're loved, that they have nothing to do with it, and that both parents, as much, if possible, are going to be part of their lives and be a part of their lives, As far with the addiction, it's as long as we're breathing, as long as somebody's breathing, there's always hope, there's opportunity. One of the things that I've known and through experience is that, if we try to force an addict or somebody that's in active addiction, we try to force them to try to get clean, or put too much pressure on them, we chase them away. Because that's what happened with my family at one point, trying to force it when I wasn't ready. Allow the process to happen, but at the same time, give that tough love and not enable, because enabling or continue having the addict in their mind saying that it's okay and continue using. And what are we going to do? We're going to love them to the point of death. We continue enabling them. If it gets to a point, give that tough love, but at the same time, always have that faith, that hope, and that prayer for them, because it'll come to a point that as long as they're breathing, they will have an opportunity that says, they'll get that it is done, and they will change their life around.
That's powerful, Julio. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me here.
And I really hope that this message reaches as many people as we can, because we know that there's families out there and there's individuals that's struggling, and we're really hoping that this can help them break through their upcoming struggles. So thank you so much for being here.
God bless you guys.
Thank you.